access to land becomes a problem. People end up being displaced. Environmental protection, again, Honorable Speaker, you've seen the cases where dams, for instance, investors want to do dams in forests, therefore degrading our environment. And that environment has a bearing on our rights as communities and as individuals who live around those areas. And therefore, some of these themes, Honorable Speaker, including labor rights, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, you bear with me, there are certain nationalities who have heavily invested in our country, Honorable Speaker. I'm just avoiding to mention names of friendly nations, Honorable Speaker. But we have seen countries or nationalities of certain countries abuse our people in terms of their labor rights. Our people are made to work for long hours without due compensation in terms of overtime. Some work under very degrading environments. Members will bear witness that you have seen contractors on roads who are doing roads with very dusty work being done, but something as simple as a face mask or goggles are not issued to these workers as they carry on work. And therefore, this action plan seeks to protect those people so that we also help government and help our nation in bringing down the cost of healthcare. And Honorable Speaker, you know, respiratory diseases in this country are a big problem. And some of those diseases emanate from investment activities or the activities of our investors who disregard all manner of human rights and therefore subject their workers to inhumane working conditions. People work without masks. People are working in factories where they are mixing chemicals without respiratory safety gear to protect their respiratory system, Honorable Speaker. And they end up, at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker, contracting diseases. Honorable Speaker, members will remember the many cases of cancer cases around our flower farms in Naivasha and in other areas where people grow flowers, where people are subjected to working in greenhouses that have a lot of chemical emissions and they have no safety protection at all. Therefore, this national action plan and the themes around it seeks to protect these people, even as we protect businesses. It also ensures, Honorable Speaker, that people have remedies, both judicial and non-judicial remedies, that if investors or if a government agency, a state-owned corporation or a privately owned corporation harms people's health or even their environment, the people individually or as a community have recourse, either through the judicial system or other non-judicial remedies that will ensure that they are adequately compensated, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the third chapter is the policy actions that have adopted the three-pillar framework of the UNGPs, namely the state duty to protect human rights. As I said, the state has a duty to protect human rights, both individually and communally. Two, the corporate responsibility to respect human rights. As I mentioned, that our corporates, both state-owned and private, have a responsibility to respect human rights. And three is access to remedy, as I was mentioning, that should your rights be contravened, whether you're a worker, whether you're a community. You remember cases in point, the case in point of oil spillage in some river in Makueni. That community in Makueni ought to have some remedy, Honorable Speaker, in law, and this policy addresses some of those things. The chapter also details key policy priority areas that the government will focus on for the next 5 years in a bid to ensure that all businesses, including state-owned enterprises, respect human rights. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, that's what I'm saying. Even our state-owned agencies, like the road agencies, Kera, Kura, Kenha, when they are building roads, whether it's Kengen that is extracting geothermal energy in Olkaria or in Menengai or wherever else, they have to respect human rights. They don't have the impunity that because they are state-owned, then they are excluded from the respect of human rights. The policy, Honorable Speaker, the policy actions under Pillar 1 on the state duty to protect human rights include the introduction of human rights due diligence requirement for businesses before licensing. That now before you license a business, the state will ensure that they have done some due diligence on how well that particular business adheres to the protection and respect of human rights. The use of public procurement systems to promote human rights, again, that's something, again, members could also think about, even as we seek to begin our work in this 13th Assembly in terms of legislation. We may think about even legislative interventions on how we will incorporate human rights due diligence as part of the public procurement systems to ensure that every other corporate, be it private or corporate, that is getting government, for instance, from government, have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that they protect human rights. And maybe it could be something that they get a score on, just like we get financial scores and technical scores when we are evaluating our public procurement bidders. Maybe something we could look at, Honorable Speaker, and I want to challenge members to think around those issues, especially on public procurement. Honorable Speaker, the alignment of all trade agreements to international human rights standards is also another issue. The development of guidelines for non-financial reporting under the Companies Act. Again, Honorable Speaker, you remember in the 12th Parliament, we enacted the company laws. There's also an opportunity, and I'm only mentioning this to give members, especially our new members, ideas on some of the key areas that you could borrow ideas from to develop bills that will not only place you in good standing with your constituents and the nation, but also borrow from such policies that you can introduce amendments to the company laws that we passed last year to ensure that there are guidelines on non-financial reporting on how well either state or non-state actors in the corporate world adhere to human rights. The other thing is the strengthening of oversight mechanisms such as the Labor Inspectorate to ensure that our Labor Inspectorate Department, Honorable Speaker, is well empowered and well resourced to ensure that they are able to ensure that all our corporates do adhere to the protection of human rights. And again, Honorable Speaker, and I'm sure I have seen the newly appointed Minister or Cabinet Secretary in charge of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Alfred Mutua, has already taken, as he said during vetting, his trip to Saudi Arabia. But I really want to challenge this House that we have a duty to protect those of our young men and ladies who are working in the Gulf states from the abuses that we have seen. And it is such national action plans that will guide us to formulate even laws that will protect our labor force, Honorable Speaker. The other thing, Honorable Speaker, is the development of a natural resource revenue management policy and the expedition of land, adjudication, and registration processes. Honorable Speaker, I don't need to belabor the question of land. Members do know and are aware of how emotive the issue of land is. And maybe we have laws that we have not respected very well. You will find in our neighborhoods, Honorable Speaker, somebody comes to build a factory that has emissions that are harmful to children. And these things are being done in neighborhoods, in residential areas. In other places, they do near rivers, polluting our rivers. The case in point, Honorable Speaker, is the case of Nairobi River. Members will appreciate the degradation and the pollution in all our rivers, not just Nairobi River, although Nairobi River, because of passing through our industrial area and numerous residential areas, has suffered a lot. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, the policy action plan under Pillar 2 on the corporate responsibility to respect human rights include developing guideline tools for businesses on their duty to respect human rights, requiring businesses to adopt human rights policies, encouraging proactive disclosure by businesses on their human rights impacts, and requiring businesses to cooperate with government agencies and other stakeholders in facilitating access to remedies for business-related human rights violations. That, Honorable Speaker, if a business violates the rights of its workers, the people, or the community, that they will also cooperate with government agencies to be able to ensure that the people whose rights have been violated access remedies, and these remedies could include compensation for abuse of rights. Honorable Speaker, the policy action plan actions under Pillar 3 on access to remedy include promoting the use of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, strengthening the national legal aid program, and creating awareness of the judicial and non-judicial remedies available to victims of business-related human rights violations. Again, Honorable Speaker, as I mentioned, we are looking at both judicial and non-judicial. And that's why Pillar 3 speaks to the alternative dispute resolution mechanism, so that where corporates abuse the rights of communities or a people, people don't necessarily have to go to court. They could engage in non-judicial processes and alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to be able to ensure that people get remedy. Honorable Speaker, the fourth and the last chapter of this National Action Plan provides the implementation framework of the policy, and it proposes the establishment of an interagency implementation committee to oversee the implementation of this policy. It further provides that the National Action Plan will be reviewed periodically to capture the emerging issues in the business and human rights disclosure. Honorable Speaker, I beg Honorable Speaker to move that this House then adopts this session of paper number 3 of 2021, which, Honorable Speaker, members being able to peruse it as it's already in the table office, we will see the work that went into the production of this particular policy plan and how beneficial it is to our communities and also to the business community in the country. Honorable Speaker, with those, I beg to move, and I want to ask my deputy leader, the Honorable Mbaya, to second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I beg to second the sessional paper number 3 of 2021, the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. Mr. Speaker, for many years in this country,